how's it going? Statman coming right back at you today. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a kind of creepy, spooky science fiction horror film from the 80s that you may not have heard about. I mean, some of you probably have, but others might not be very familiar with it because when you think about a creepy, scary sci-fi horror movie from the 80s, you probably think of something like Aliens, right? But maybe you either forgot or just never knew about Moontrap. I know I never knew about it. Never saw this in the 80s, never saw this in the 90s, never saw this until now. I knew when I saw Moontrap and Bruce Campbell in the thrift store, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to get that right freaking now. And then, of course, I saw the good old, there we go, Olive Films logo there, and I was like, oh, even better. I can't remember how much I paid for this one, but I think it was either $1 or $2.50 at most. So it was really freaking cheap. It was just like, whoa, I can't believe these are this cheap here. Because it's Olive Films and it's Moontrap, right? And I didn't know what Moontrap was at the time. I just knew any movie from a specialty label like this that stars Bruce Campbell is probably worth picking up. Early Bruce Campbell that I had never seen before, hell freaking yeah. And yeah, I didn't watch it for a long time. I waited to watch this one for quite a while. But I gotta say, making the decision to watch it this year for Halloween, I think was a very good decision because this is a fantastic horror movie. There are a lot of horror elements to this movie that make it quite enjoyable. So I don't feel wrong in calling it a horror movie. It's a sci-fi horror. Let's just be quite honest. It's a sci-fi horror. It's got more sci-fi than it does horror. But there is a lot of horror elements. There are a lot of horror elements, I should say, in this movie. So if you wanted to watch a sci-fi horror for Halloween, this one I think would make a pretty good one. I mean, eventually you get tired of seeing the same old stuff for Halloween, and I wanted to mix it up a bit. So I went ahead and decided to watch Moontrap rather than all the others that I'd already seen a million times before. And yeah, like I said, very glad I did because this is a very good movie. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I guess some people have said this isn't a very good movie. Some people say it's trash. I don't think so. The story behind it is actually like, it reminded me of The Thing in a lot of ways. Because the story behind it, well, I have to kind of get into some spoiler territory to explain it, so I hope you guys won't mind. But if you are interested and you don't mind too many spoilers, I won't give too many spoilers, but if you don't mind a few spoilers here and there, then allow me to elucidate. This movie starts off with two astronauts who are on a mission, and they just so happen to come across this like derelict ship that like it looks like an alien ship essentially. So they're just like, well, we got to check this out now, you know. So one of them goes out and checks it out and finds something strange in the hull. First of all, he notes that there's like some strange writing that they can't decipher on the side, and then he finds this weird like almost egg-looking thing in the hole. They didn't know quite what it was. They couldn't quite tell what it was. But they decided to bring it back for, investigative purposes anyways. And as he grabbed the thing to bring it back, turns around, and there's just, a man floating in space, dead, like looked like the life had been sucked out of him for like thousands of years ago. And it turns out, and here's the kicker that makes this so cool and such a cool story idea that, I mean, I don't know why people didn't like this, because this idea behind the story alone, to me, makes it freaking amazing. So it turns out that this dead guy that they found floating in space is 14,000 years old, and he is human. You know, they do all the tests, they run the tests, and he's human, and he's 14,000 years old. So, a human being in space, an astronaut, if you will, in space, somebody who was apparently on this ship at one point, 14,000 years ago. Now, if you know anything about human history, that flies in the face of everything we know about human history. For what we know, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years at most is what we can record. Maybe more if we're being generous. But for the most part, there's not that much behind human history so far. We haven't been like the dominant life form on this planet for very long. We really haven't been upright and speaking and stuff like that, or at least we didn't think so. So when this movie comes in and says, this guy's 14,000 years old, it's like, holy crap. There was a civilization that went to space, a human civilization that went to space before the current human civilization. What? So that sends a lot of ideas through your head, like, if that's the case, then how what happened to the past civilization, and why hasn't it happened to this civilization, or just what the hell is going on here? So they go on another mission to figure out what's going on. They go to the moon, and, that's where my spoilers end. That's the most I will say that is spoilerific, alright? I can't go any further than that because I don't want to give away the whole damn movie. But, like that whole plot point there was so freaking cool to me because it just sends a million ideas floating through my head. Like, 14,000 years ago, that means, but how, where, what? You know? So, I absolutely love that aspect of it. And I guess there's one more spoiler I will add in here, alright? The thing that they bring back, the egg-shaped thing, I'm not going to tell you what it is. The fact that I called it an egg-shaped thing should probably give it away that maybe it's not an egg. But otherwise, why would I call it an egg-shaped thing? Am I literally just going to say, they brought back... Wouldn't I just say they brought back an egg? You know? Or wouldn't I say, it turns out to be an egg? No, it doesn't. It turns out to be something else. But what it turns out to be is not good. It's very bad. Honestly, I mean, I know this is a bit of a spoiler, but it's not that much of a spoiler because if you go watch the trailer, they kind of show you what happens in the trailer with that particular thing that I'm talking about. So, yeah, that's where the horror sets in. These things that I'm not going to mention. That's where the horror elements come in. And they're very creepy, they're spooky, they're almost kind of, to me at least, reminiscent of something we may or may not have seen on Doctor Who. And really this kind of feels like a Doctor Who story. It feels like he went to another part of the universe and there just so happens to be humans there from another time or something. You know what I mean? Because that actually did happen a lot in the early days of Doctor Who. I don't know about the more modern Doctor Who because I haven't seen a lot of that Doctor Who yet. I haven't seen any of it, in fact. I've only seen the earlier Doctor Who. But if you watch the earlier Doctor Who, you'll know that he visits a lot of places that are, that just so happen to be like thousands of light years away that have human civilizations of their own that are technically like from Earth or whatever. But yeah, in that way it kind of feels like a Doctor Who story. And I feel like that even gives a little bit too much away, but I just want to give people the sense of what kind of movie it is. So, yeah, that's what you're getting into with this one, and I think it's pretty damn awesome. Now, is it a great movie? No. It's cheesy. It's definitely cheesy. It's definitely not the most incredible movie you'll ever see. The writing isn't necessarily always there. I mean, it's It works for the most part, but some of the ways that the character lines are written just don't work too well. The acting isn't always there either. Some of the actors don't necessarily do a terrific job. I love Bruce Campbell, and I loved his character in this movie. But I gotta say, he had one of the cheesiest lines and one of the cheesiest moments in this movie. And honestly, I can't say I didn't like it. I felt like it was one of the highlights of the movie. So I can't necessarily say that there's anything bad about his performance in this. I enjoyed Bruce Campbell in this. I'm sure a lot of people might look at this and say, "Oh, just a terrible performance," but I don't think it was. I thought it was a pretty damn good performance, and that at least one of the scenes was just downright brilliant for all the right reasons, in my opinion. But again, I'm trying not to give too much away because I want you to go and watch it yourself because it's actually pretty damn good. I very much enjoyed this one and would recommend it to anybody who is looking for a good sci-fi horror movie to watch. So yeah, very cool stuff. Bruce Campbell, sci-fi horror, kind of hard to go wrong. I know you're probably thinking of some of the other stuff that he's done and thinking, is this as cheesy as that? Actually, no. Although there is a cheese factor, it's not as heavy as it is with some of the other, sci-fi horror movies of the 80s or even just the horror or sci-fi movies of the 80s. It's kind of light on the cheese. The cheese is there. It's, I would say, important to the film, but it's not necessarily as heavily played upon in this film as you might find in some of the other movies like it, of its ilk from this period in time. So, yeah, if you're looking for something that's cheesy but a little bit more on the serious side and works pretty well and tells a very interesting story, this is pretty cool. I loved it. Glad I have it in my collection. Rating 7, maybe 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was really good. And don't have too many complaints, really. Not too many complaints at all. So, yeah, that'll do it for me. Thanks for watching, you guys. Catch you later. Peace.